Hey bro, in my GCE O levels, I got an A1, which is the highest grade you can get in both my mathematics and additional mathematics. But it wasn't always this way. There were so many times in secondary school where I would be doing math questions and then I would come across this one question that I didn't know how to do, and it would be fucking frustrating. I would try this solution, this method, that solution, that method, and none of them would work. I knew I should just skip this question and stop wasting my time. I could just ask my friend how to do it later, but my ego wouldn't let me. So every time I came across a somewhat difficult math question, I would literally end up spending an entire freaking hour on that single question. And I wouldn't be able to do the other tasks that I had planned for the day because I spent 1 hour on a freaking math question. And the worst part is, I used to sometimes do this during exams as well. So obviously I didn't complete those papers and I got bad grades. And you can probably relate to this phenomenon of spending an annoyingly large amount of time on a single difficult math question. Math is fun only when you know how to do the questions, but when you don't, you want to cry. So, for many students, doing math can end up being a massive waste of time, extremely frustrating, and obviously we all want that A, right? So, in this video, I'll tell you 4 things you should do to get over the frustration of difficult math questions, actually become able to easily complete those difficult math questions. You get to the point where you can look at a math question and instantly know what to write within 3 seconds. Math will start to become extremely fun instead of extremely frustrating. And of course, last but not least, you'll get your A in maths. Strategy 1. Create a system of support for mathematics. Okay, so if you can relate to wasting ridiculous amounts of time on just one math question that you can't do, and so you can't complete all the other tasks of the day, the solution is so fucking simple, right? You take a photo of the question, then send it to a smart guy in your class or your math teacher and ask if they can help you with it. Then you circle the question, you force yourself to skip the question, remember the times you wasted an hour on a single question and still couldn't do it, tell yourself this is not worth your time, then move on to the next question. Boom. I just saved you hours of your life and tons of emotional baggage. And after like a few hours or so, or a few minutes, if the people you text are very responsive, you get a solution to the question you were struggling with from the guy you texted. And this is where I must tell you not to just copy the solution onto your worksheet or whatever. Like, what's the freaking point of doing that? You're gonna have to try to understand what went wrong, why you weren't able to do the question, what you were lacking when you tried to do the question. For example, I really struggled with coordinate geometry, more specifically, questions related to circles. So I would come across a circles question I found difficult, I would send it to a friend, they would reply with a solution, and I would look at the solution and realize that, oh, I had to apply this property of circle, which I forgot even existed. So I would literally take a pen of a different color than the one I usually write with. I would put a star on my paper and write, remember that the radius of a circle blah 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 blah. And this is actually part of a note-taking system. I think I'll call it the stars system because I like using stars for it. And I'll talk more about this system later in the video. So your actionable step is, find your system of support now to use whenever you struggle with a math question, which could be as simple as texting the smart guy in your class or texting your math teacher, or it could be asking the teacher about the question in class the next day. Just make sure your problems get solutions within a few day period. Then, the next time you come across a hard solution, just simply use this system of support. Try to understand the solution that they give you. If you don't understand, ask questions. If you still don't understand, ask even more questions. Never be afraid to ask questions. You can meet up with the person or the teacher in real life to further clarify the solution if you really need to. And whenever you learn anything math related from their solution or from clarifying it, anything, just jot down that thing on the same worksheet the question is on and put a star beside it. Like I said, this is part of a note-taking system that I will talk about right now actually. Strategy number 2, the STAR system. I know, creative name, right? This is a system I came up with myself, and I have improved it somewhat through trial and error. And I have used it for every single subject during my O-levels, and I'm still using it in JC. This will help you take advantage of your mistakes and make short, smart, not necessarily neat, but very concise notes for basically every subject, not just math. So this system starts with what I talked about earlier, the stars. Whenever you finish a set of math questions, could be homework, could be self-practice, and your teacher goes through the solutions or you go through the solutions yourself, whenever you learn something new or you come across something that you want to be reminded of immediately before your next exam, just write it down or circle it or box it or whatever, and add a star beside it using a pen of a different color so that the star is very noticeable. You can do this, and you should do this, with homework, papers from exams that you have taken, and the practice papers you do, etc, etc. Feel free to write down and star a bunch of different stuff. You can do it for specific strategies, for specific types of questions. For example, draw diagrams when doing coordinate geometry. You can write down and star specific things to take note of for certain questions, like when drawing or sketching a graph, remember to label the axis, or apply this when doing trigonometry. For subjects like chemistry and physics, maybe you want to take note of an entire answer to a very common question. So you can just circle the whole question, put a star, and just write, memorize the answer to this question. And you don't only have to make notes when you get something wrong. Maybe if you got a question right, but there's this formula here that you feel like you might forget later, or there's this much faster method of doing the same question, you can star that too. Maybe sometimes you don't know how to extract like a specific strategy or reminder from a question. You can just circle and star the entire freaking question, and sometimes I would literally write, read the question properly, bro, and star that. And here's a really useful tip for note taking in general. Be aggressive in your note taking. What I mean by this is, if you think something is really important to note, start using capital letters, underlining, boxing, circling, add 1 more star, add 2 more stars, add 5 stars, write it bigger, use a pen with more distinct color like red. Use a combination of all these different things to make the more important notes look more important. And whenever you have stars on a worksheet or a paper, but you don't really need them for your classes anymore, keep them somewhere accessible in your house so you know where it is. And over time, you would have probably collected dozens of worksheets, dozens of stars. So here comes the fun part, or the not so fun part. I don't know, it depends on the type of person you are. The day before your next exam of a certain subject, take out all the worksheets, homework, practice papers, exam papers, whatever, from that one subject. Okay, let's say math, because this video is about math. And then you open up an online document like a Google Doc or Microsoft Word. You flip through the worksheets and you look for the stars that you have drawn. And then you transfer all of the points that you have starred onto this online document. And make sure to also transfer the aggressiveness of the notes I talked about earlier. On the online documents, you can bold words, you can capitalize them, you can underline, you can increase the font size, you can change the colors, etc, etc. You can even leave out some of the points if you think you know it well enough. And you can also add certain things that you have to memorize, but you haven't really gotten around to memorizing them, like certain laws of indices, laws of circles, stuff like that. And then you'll end up with a very nice, beautiful, somewhat messy but concise document with basically everything you need to know before the exam. This document would probably be like 2 to 10 pages, maybe even more. It really does depend on, no offense, your skill level and also the length of the time period you're taking the stars from. And this is so effective because if you just read your, math textbook or the notes issued by the school or the TYS notes, 95% of the things there are either things you already know or things that get tested once a fucking decade, so it's really not that important. And you end up wasting so much of your time and brain power studying those things. The remaining 5% of things that you actually have to know are all in your concise star system document, which you can print out to read before the exam. Because this document contains every single thing you've learned from being exposed to dozens of math homework, exam papers, practice papers, etc. And if there's something you didn't learn from doing all those worksheets, then honestly it's probably really just not important. So your actionable step is to start using the STAR system, just starring the things you learn or the things you want to be reminded of before an exam. A day before the exam, transfer all of it onto a document which you can print out and read before the exam itself. Simple. I'll include one of the notes I made using this system, which is the exact same document I was reading immediately before my O-level exam. And you might notice it's actually completely unintelligible to you. And that's not because you are bad at math, it's because notes made using this system are very personalized. Like they are designed for the person making them. So if you use this system, you end up with a set of notes that are made for you specifically and no one else. So please don't copy my notes and use them, cause it would only benefit me to do that, but for you it will probably be incomplete, maybe even useless. So just use it to get an idea of what these notes can look like. Strategy 3. Just practice. I'm sorry bro, but the truth is, and everyone knows this, the best way to quickly get good at maths is to just practice, then practice more. There's really a lot of value in just putting in the work and practicing and getting that volume, getting those reps in. With just sheer volume, you'll start accumulating a lot of those stars we talked about. You start to naturally get better, write faster. You start to memorize the formulas just from how much you have to apply them. You start having times where you look at a question and you instantly just know the solutions. Because the book Discipline is Destiny by Ryan Holiday says that with practice, the thing you practice slowly becomes second nature, like natural instinct. Imagine having math as second nature. Of course you'll be getting straight A's for math if you have that. When you look at all the straight A students, you realize that they are indeed able to look at 80% of math questions and instantly it seems like their muscle memory already knows what to write before they even start thinking. As you practice more and more, you start getting higher grades, you start making less star notes per practice paper actually, because you basically know everything already. And this is literally what I did to improve my math grades. During the June holidays of 2022 or 2023, I don't remember, I would spend every single morning like an hour or 2 hours or so just doing math, and my grades instantly improved. So your actionable step, get practicing. Ask your teachers for any past year papers or any papers from other schools that they can provide. Try to print them out. I personally find that referring to the questions online on a laptop or whatever can bring a lot of problems, and it just doesn't have the same feeling of satisfaction when you do it on paper. And start practicing. You can do what I did, which is basically every day of the June holidays or any long holiday you have, just spend 2 hours spamming math questions per day. But of course, if you want faster progress, you need more volume. So you can consider doing this 1 to 2 hours per weekend as well. Remember to use your support system and your stars. By the way, I do not care if you are so bad at math that you have to take an entire week just to finish one paper. We all have to start somewhere. Just put in those 1 to 2 hours. If you can't finish the paper, it's fine, it's okay. Take all the time you need to finish it. Just make sure you get those hours in, and slowly you'll start to write faster and the time taken for each paper decreases and decreases. Sometimes you might have a bad day and you got a lower score on your practice paper that day, but just keep going and eventually you'll reach the straight A standard. 100% trust. Strategy 4. Be comfortable skipping questions during an exam. Look at literally any math paper and you notice something very interesting. The harder questions that take up the most of students' time during exams are only worth like 5%, 10% of the weightage of the entire paper itself. And the rest of the questions, which range from okay difficulty to literally 3 marks, take up like 90% of the grade. So during an exam, if you were to obsess over a difficult question which is like 4 marks, you sacrifice the time you have for all the easy questions after, which are like 20, 30 marks total. Those marks are literally just waiting to be picked up, and you're over here wrestling with all of your energy to try to get those measly 4 to 5 marks. And this is a common pitfall I used to struggle personally because of my ego. During my physics prelim exam, yes, the prelim exam, there was this very difficult question like right in the middle of the paper. Before and after this question were all very simple and easy questions, relatively. But I decided to obsess over this one difficult question, and I eventually finished it, but I wasn't able to finish the easy questions after. And the funny thing was, those who were not as good in physics as me, who saw the difficult question and immediately went, nope, I'm not dealing with this shit, and went on to finish the easy questions, managed to get better scores than me because they didn't waste their time on that one question. And by the way, I didn't include this in the script, but I just want to say that the E-Math and A-Math O-level papers that I said I got A1 in, I didn't even finish them. I didn't even complete all of the questions. So, your actionable step, whenever you encounter a question and you find yourself taking more than a few seconds to at least write something after reading the questions, just skip it. Don't be afraid of jumping around the paper and not answering questions in the order that they were presented, because the markers don't care about that and the order is just often irrelevant, and you'll probably end up saving more time this way. I hope you found this video helpful. Please give me any criticism and feedback in the comments below. Criticize me as much as you can so that I can improve, and I wish you a good day.